Maeve Plouffe is a woman whose efforts have been divided equally between the boards of the Velodrome and the halls of Adelaide University. She's a national champion, a soon-to-be Olympian with record-breaking ways. Well, Maeve, thanks so much for joining us today. And I believe you just finished a big track session. Is that right?
Yep, we've been training pretty intensely in the lead up to the games. So Fridays are usually a track gym day for us. So we just had some 4 kilometer team pursuits with the team, which was a pretty solid session. So finish up and get to talk to you.
Well, I've got to say, I've got a selective memory about those training sessions, Maeve. I've wiped them from my consciousness. Speaking of training and performing, you broke quite a long-standing Australian individual pursuit record the other day. You now hold the honour of being the fastest woman in Australia ever to cover 3,000 metres on the track. That's a bit of a special one. Congratulations.
It is a really special one, and it's one that I've had my eye on since Berlin last year when I did the individual pursuit at a world champs for the first time. But I didn't think I'd have an opportunity to try and break it. And I wasn't actually going for it on the weekend when I did break it. It was really unexpected. I had all right legs, but we are in the middle of a pretty heavy training block. And we had no taper for it or anything like that. But my coach Glenn, he said, if you want to do the IP for some odd reason, you can go have a shot at it. So I thought, why not test the legs, have a go. Went out, tried my best, and yeah, it was a great time. So it was super exciting. And yeah.
It's interesting that you say the coach said for some reason, because an individual pursuit has got to be 3.5 of the worst minutes of your life. Every single one of them. It's a pretty tough event. And mentally, I think there's a lot of challenges. But speaking of pretty tough challenges mentally, what was 2020 like? Because you had the high of being named in an Olympic team and as one of the youngest ever female cyclists to ever be so. But then the games didn't actually happen. How has that left you feeling?
It was really bittersweet. It almost feels like it was that sort of achievement of the games is being ripped away from you at the time, which was difficult. I'm not going to lie, especially when you have all of that planning, the years of planning and training all kind of lined up and ready to go and ready to be executed. Um, However, once I did find out the games were postponed and not cancelled, it was a huge sigh of relief for me because I had a really hectic lead up leading into the games. We have such a packed, full of talent women's team pursuit squad. And the girls who were all up for selection, there were 9 of us, and they were all so talented that the selection process was actually really hard and it was really, really taxing. So having the games an entire year later meant that I actually had time to settle in my new team, get to know them well, figure out my role within the team, establish myself, and actually train with them, which has been really invaluable for me because, joining a new squad and racing with at the Olympic Games within 6 months of joining that squad is that's actually pretty crazy. So I am actually grateful that the games have been postponed. It's been a massive benefit for us.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting perspective. But I want to pick up on one word you used to describe it, which was hectic. And Maeve, I feel like hectic is kind of your thing because on top of heading to the Olympics for the Australian track team, you're also at university doing a double degree in law and science, majoring in marine biology and ecology. It's a massive mouthful, but how on earth do you balance all of that?
Yeah, so I've been studying since I came out of school. I knew that I wanted to get into science. It's something that I've always wanted to do and I'm very interested in. But I couldn't give up the humanities subjects entirely. So I decided I would give law a shot and see if I liked it. And I actually really did. It was quite a challenge. And I'm really interested, especially in environmental law and sort of policy and making, I guess, a bit of a difference. So that's definitely a good motivation for when I'm finished up with cycling. Balancing is a funny word because a lot of people are like, wow, you must be so organized and so well balanced with your studies and your sport. I would say that I kind of go in waves where I study really hard and I'm training too hard as well, and then I burn myself out and then repeat. But it's been really good coming into the track team because I've just sort of relaxed a little bit this year with my study load. So before the games, I'll back it right off. But I've just got to pick and choose my times when I am studying versus when I'm training. For example, last year when the games got postponed, I was straight on the phone begging my university to let me into as many courses as possible. So I actually was a full-time, technically 4 subjects, full-time student last year. But then this year I'll back it right off. So it's balancing, but it's also just prioritizing what you want to achieve in that year.
Oh, I love it. You're such a good role model for the small humans and the people coming through the sport, Maeve, because I think traditionally people look at athletes and think you have to choose between being an athlete or following any academic and other career ambitions. So I absolutely applaud you for that. It's an interesting thing that you've chosen to ride with a team on the road, ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. They have a pretty equal men's and women's focus, but they're also associated with a university. They must really encourage you to keep that, and we use the word balance, but that balance between your racing and your studying.
Since ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast are a development team, it's actually one of their core focuses, which I think really aligns well with my own values. And I can just see how well-rounded the other team members on my team are because of that focus. So pretty much everyone on the team is encouraged to study, and a lot of teams say that they encourage their athletes to study, but I can well and truly say that they do. And everyone has to have that off-bike balance, something else that they're passionate about. And that's so important because otherwise, as an athlete, we tend to value ourselves on how fast we can ride a bike, which is so crazy, but we're all guilty of it. So having something on the side can really complement what you're doing on the bike. It's definitely not a hindrance. It's not effort taken away. There's definitely a misconception that if you're passionate about your studies or passionate about something else, then you have to be less passionate about cycling. I think that it's great that the team supports that and also supports the men's and women's teams equally.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, actually, and it certainly helped me get through my career, the whole study. Again, balance, a lot of inverted commas we're using here. Maeve, I want to ask you, there's been a lot in the news lately around women's cycling, men's cycling, equality across prize money, and things like that. I mean, from your view, how do you think cycling is going in terms of men and women's equality?
I think it's improving. And as a young athlete coming in, I have to be grateful for the women, like pioneers of the sport that have come before me and really driven that equality, because I think it really has been a fight. It's definitely not something that I take for granted or that's just magically happened over the years. A lot of women have put in so much effort into making it equal. I think that some races are, for example, the Festival of Cycling this year, replacing the Tour Down Under, was as close to an equal race as I have ever really seen. It was great. But then I see the prize money results of other big races, especially in Europe, and I am pretty disappointed in that. I think our track program is brilliant for promoting equality. There's pretty much no difference to how the men's and women's track endurance teams are treated at the moment. So that's a great start. But definitely on the road, I think with commercial sponsors and the likes, it can be really sort of, the differences can be exasperated, I guess.
Yeah, well, our theme for International Women's Day in 2021 is choose to challenge. And I think that you're perfectly placed to challenge and keep pushing for the equality that women are seeking. Maeve, thank you so much for joining us today, and massive good luck for Tokyo. We'll all be watching. You've got another year under your belt, and we wish you every success.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Maeve.